It's very interesting. And of course, with the speed things are moving right now, kind of everybody is talking about AI. And you just said it, right? There is also now news coverage in all the different outlets. If we were to zoom out just a little bit, from the current discussion, from what's happening, what's developing on a weekly or even a monthly basis, where are we just, from your perspective, where are we in the grander scheme of AI development? Do you think it's overhyped right now? Do you think we're just, at the beginnings? Actually, probably we are technologically, but there is a saying that once your taxi driver talks to you about a certain thing, be it a stock option or even Bitcoin, maybe there is an argument that this is a little bit overhyped right now. So where are we in all of this discussion on AI and technological disruption?
So personally, I'm super excited about it because before ChatGPT came out at the end of 2022, like media and analysts were talking up the next AI winter where, well, actually we didn't see all the promises that the previous generation machine learning was supposed to meet and to fulfill. And maybe it's not that real and maybe it's not that easy and that simple to do. And then ChatGPT came around and it made AI, generative AI, and most of all the results that you can achieve so much more accessible, right? I can have them here on my phone with me at any point, as long as I have an internet connection. I can ask it to do something for me and I get the results. I don't have to be a PhD student or graduate anymore. I don't need to have a training in statistics and optimization to get the benefits of AI. It's gotten a lot easier and a lot simpler to use it. I think that's huge. And that's a huge part also in why we are seeing taxi drivers having those conversations with us, right? And being more informed. That's the part that gets me super excited, that finally we're able to have these conversations. And in a business context, right, you're able to have this conversation with your C-level, even with your senior manager or more superior manager. In that sense, because they've all tried it out or they're being asked, well, what are you doing with AI? What's your AI strategy? So if you're in technology, if you're working on AI even, that opens up so many doors and opportunities that have been closed before or have been really, really hard to open. Now, is it overhyped? I think that's a great question. I think in the industry, there is a lot of excitement. There's a lot of buzz. On one hand, you have the venture capitalists, right, pouring money into these new companies and startups. On the other hand, they are producing really, really impressive results that can unlock even more of these promises, even in a short period of time. So I think last year we've seen a lot of the experimentation, a lot of the piloting. What is generative AI? What can you do with it? What are maybe some issues with it? What do we need to know about it? How can we use it? I think this year, at least in business, what I see is companies are really starting to implement this, to roll this out, to get benefits from it. On one hand, because it's relatively easy to get started. Right? It's usually about text generation or summarization or translation is some of the more low-hanging fruit. And there's so much text in the business that makes sense to go after those. But then I think also business leaders, again, are being asked, well, how are you using it? When are you using it? So gone are the days that we're stuck in a proof of concept pilot mode for months, right? How quickly can we come up with an idea that delivers value? How quickly can we build it? And how quickly can we get it into the hands of our users or customers, again, safely, so that they can get benefits from it?
A good friend of mine actually works at a larger investment firm across Europe. They're funding young companies and also startups. And they actually made kind of a small and internal game out of it, because what they do is whenever they receive some pitches from new to be founded companies, startups, ventures, whatever, they literally started to keep track of the number of how often AI was mentioned in those pitch decks, and they sort them by descending order by the numbers of AI is mentioned in those slides, and they take the top one and they just take it out of the discussion, and they made fun of it. So that's there's just these signals that are flying around that give sense. But I share the excitement, of course, and in fact, in the earlier days, And when I did my PhD research, we had access to early GPT models, command line, and all that stuff. And it was super exciting, but the layer of accessibility was simply missing, as you said. And of course, these models have not been as powerful as they are today, for sure. And the next ones are pretty much being more powerful, of course. But I agree, it's really that level of accessibility that made it possible to a large audience. But why should businesses care? How can AI give companies and businesses a competitive edge?
So maybe let me turn the question back to you. What's the part that you enjoy most about your day? Is it writing proposals? Is it answering emails? Any of those?
Absolutely not.
Right. So again, speaking of low hanging fruit, right? Those are some exciting opportunities. Or think about then more on the commerce or sales side. How can you generate product descriptions that are really, really good because you have a lot of information already in your business systems? Or say in HR, right? You see this in your LinkedIn feed or social media feeds on a daily basis. Hey, how can you write a good resume with the help of generative AI? And on the other hand, how can you identify good candidates by processing those resumes with generative AI? So I think there are just a lot of opportunities today where business is so text heavy, also document heavy. I think it was Everest Group a couple of months or a year ago who said about 80 to 90% of data in a business is stored in documents. Typically, somebody needs to open a document, read it, or copy and paste something. Now, if you can process that with generative AI and you can get to the gist of it within a couple of seconds, perfect, right? You don't need to read it. You don't need to summarize it. Meetings, meeting minutes, things that you discuss. What are the action items again? Or maybe you joined late. Can you summarize that for me? I think there on a productivity side, there are already so many opportunities. And then like I said, whether it's HR or product descriptions and definitely sales and marketing, where there's a lot of copy that is being written, that goes on a website, it goes into a document. If you can enrich the prompt that even you or I would put into ChatGPT and give it a lot more context about your business, about the products, about the services that you offer, you can get to a really good result within seconds. I think that's the huge opportunity, especially getting to that good enough result, the good enough draft that you can work off.
And so what is a good place to start? I mean, we see, these days many jumping already into the solution space, right? So they start with an ideation workshop. They meet virtually, hybrid, on-site, whatever it is, do a workshop or obviously prompting large language models for his ideas too. Sort those ideas out and try to identify low-hanging fruits for use cases for text-based analytics, or even just literally ChatGPT or custom GPTs. Is that a good way to start? Should companies start somewhere earlier or later in the process? What is considered a good place to start?
So from my experience, the best place to start is with figuring out what is the business problem that we actually have, that we're trying to solve. Like there's so many opportunities with ChatGPT and similar tools in a business, but the question is, where do we actually have a need, and then where does that technology fit? I think otherwise you end up with use cases or scenarios where we are creating happier employees, right? Which is nice, right? And that's aspirational, but it's maybe not a business KPI or not something you can charge for more or you can monetize. It's important that we have happier employees and that work gets easier and more seamless and all of that. That's great. But I think there are more tangible business metrics and KPIs that you should be looking at to determine, is this something that we should pursue? And how do we believe that a certain scenario that we see will actually contribute to achieving that KPI or to improving that KPI? And I think that's also a bit of the challenge, right? Where do you start? How much knowledge do you need to have about the ability and capability of the technology, and how much knowledge do you need to have about your business process? And ideally, bring those two together. So I think when you bring technologists and business experts together, that's when you have the right combination, because everybody has their unique angle in between, hey, here's a problem that we run into, I don't know, every week, every month, and here's a toolbox of capabilities and solutions coming together and determine what's the 1, 2, 3 things that we should be looking at is usually quite fruitful.
Obviously, starting with a problem is very powerful. I agree. It probably would also entail that you kind of need to know that it could potentially be solved with that technology. So you need to at least maybe have some kind of knowledge or awareness of what this thing actually is capable of and where the boundaries are today. Because obviously, it's not the magic button for everything. It is very powerful, but certainly, I guess, requires some prior knowledge. What can it do? What is not possible? What can be inputted even to it, like videos, for example? Yes, but maybe not ChatGPT or other models. So you kind of need to know the boundaries, I guess. In addition, yeah.
Yeah, I think so, definitely, right? So there's a bit of level setting, maybe a bit of enablement or education.
Yeah.
On one hand, so by the way, when I do sessions in person or even virtual, and I ask in the audience how many have used ChatGPT and similar tools before, by now I see at least three quarters or more raise their hand and say, yes, I've used this. So that to me means people have somewhat of an understanding, and it's lowered that barrier of entry. We don't need to explain that, hey, these things are built based on data and they learn and you can improve them and all these kind of things. That's still important to know, but people have already seen it. They already know what they can do with it and what they can do with just a text box and a prompt. And that's pretty powerful, right? So imagine if you had that available in your daily work. Where are situations where you create a lot of text, where you are spending a lot of time reviewing things or crafting things, and maybe they're not, exactly perfect. So you need to spend more time creating them yourself or something. Or where would you have an intern that helps you gather information, summarize information, these type of things. And I think people can much better understand these examples because they have had a higher likelihood of using those tools in their personal life already.